So, good afternoon, and welcome to our next installment of the In the Room series, How HR Builds AI Habits That Actually Stick. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us today. My name is Elise, and I am part of ELMO's marketing team. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we are all meeting today. For me, that is the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. We pay our respects to elders past and present as early innovators and acknowledge their significant contribution to science and technology throughout land, water, and culture. So, if you've joined a webinar with us before, you probably know our quick admin. You are in listen only mode, so you can hear us, but we can't hear you. The webinar is being recorded and we will send it to you later this week or Monday. And we will open the chat and Q&A, so ask your questions anytime and we'll set aside some time at the end to answer them. If we run out of time or don't get to your question, we will follow up with a response in the coming week. So, what is today's topic about? It's all about the habits, behaviours, and practical conditions that separate early AI enthusiasm to lasting behavioural change at work. I'm going to start the session with a quick poll. So let me just launch that. Journey poll. So you will see that. Where are you all in your AI journey? Still exploring AI and trying to work out where to start? You have the tools in place, but adoption still feels patching. That's meant to say patchy or dependent on individuals, or we are using AI regularly and now want to make the habits stick. So I'll just give everyone a quick second to answer that. And then my second question or second poll will be about leadership support. So I will give that one more moment. We're seeing a fair few people, about 50% have tools in place, but adoption still feels patchy or dependent on individuals. I'm going to go back. And then where do you feel like your leadership support is? So how supportive is it in your AI transformation? Do you have strong top-down support for AI adoption? The interests exist, but ownership or direction is still unclear, or HR is trying to lead, but leadership buy-in is limited. Okay, we are seeing, I would say the majority, over 50%, everyone, the interest exists, but ownership or direction is still unclear. Thanks, everyone. I just want to keep going with that. So we will, hopefully you can still see. Yep. So we will try to focus a little bit on leadership behaviours today as a result of that. But let's get started because we have three very experienced leaders who have incorporated AI into not only their daily life, but their organisation as well. So let me introduce them. First, we have Dr. Amantha Imber. Amantha is an organisational psychologist, founder of Inventium, Australian AI Consultant of the Year, and host of Australia's #1 business podcast, How I Work and How I AI. She's an expert in the behavioural science of how organisations actually adopt and embed AI at work, and we are thrilled to have you join us today, Amantha.
So good to be here.
And some familiar faces, if you've logged into an ELMO webinar before, we have Justin Meier, who is our Head of Talent, Experience and Workforce Capability at ELMO. He has been instrumental to ELMO's AI adoption and impact. And we also have Helen Tran, who is our Strategic People and Culture Leader. She is joining us with over 18 years of experience in her field, and she is the head of our People and Cultural team here at ELMO. So I don't want to waste another second of me talking. Let's get into it. First, I want to take us back to about 12 months ago, which I guess for many of us, especially with AI, might feel like a lifetime ago. How were you all thinking about using AI then, and what feels most different today? Justin, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think if I reflect back 12 months ago, it feels more like probably about 24 months ago. Things have just accelerated so quickly. But we really sort of kicked off the financial year with a range of initiatives that were really designed to help not only alleviate some of our employees' sort of early skepticism or any fears they may have had, but also to provide the platform and environment for us to really accelerate how we as an organisation, as teams and also as individuals really collaborate and innovate with AI in a safe, secure and responsible way. So that was then. And if I fast forward through to now, today, huge contrast where AI really feels much more integrated into everyday work and is part of the fabric in how we get things done here at ELMO. So a lot of that early nervousness or skepticism has largely dropped or dissipated, and the engagement with AI is really high.
Helen, what would you like to add to that?
Yeah, look, I think Justin's framed it really well. I mean, Justin was very key in the strategy that we launched when we kind of launched the adoption of AI when I look at 12 months ago. And, working with the team of people partners and our stakeholders and employees directly, I think for me, it was about, there was a lot of excitement, a lot of experimentation, but there was also a lot of questions from our staff, which is like, what does this mean for me? Will AI, replace my role? How much do I need to learn overnight? Will I get it wrong? So for our team, we kind of started with that psychological safety, ensuring that staff felt secure with AI. And I think, we kind of, if I look at 12 months now, the conversations shifted really dramatically from just exploration and experimentation. We're not looking at it that this is a project or a 6-month project. It's really becoming part of our fabric, and it's really organic now in the organisation. And Justin just said on that when we look at our measurements and our statistics of who's using it and some of the tools that we've got. So I think staff are no longer asking whether they should use AI. I think they're now at the point 12 months later is how can I use it better than I was yesterday or 12 months ago?
I would definitely, as a staff member at ELMO, agree with that. Amantha, is there anything that you could add that from your perspective, from both, I guess, from Inventium's point of view, but then maybe even how you're seeing other organisations?
So one of the things, I mean, there's so many things that have changed in the last 12 months, which feels like 5 years ago. But one thing I would say that is particularly relevant to HR peeps is the importance of having a learning strategy. I think that 12 months ago, a lot of HR folk that we were talking to at Inventium AI were like, let's get some AI training done. And you'd run a day, or maybe you'd do prompting 101, and then it's like, great, that box is ticked. But what we know now, and what I don't think enough HR people are thinking about, is that you need a learning strategy because this stuff changes so much. Like there's co-work, there's skills, there's projects, there's artifacts, the list goes on. And every week something new emerges probably in the AI platform that I'm sure everyone that is dialed in is using. And so what is your learning strategy? Because a one and done workshop is not enough.
Yeah.
That's so, I even just like some of that language you just used there. I'm doing an AI marketing course at the moment, and even the different tools, ChatGPT versus Copilot versus Gemini, and how they reference and it's either the knowledge, like the gem or the project or something that's all slightly different. So even just trying to keep up with, what you use, as well as educating yourself on that. I wanted to talk about a concrete example of an AI habit that has actually stuck in your team. And how did it start and what has kept it going? And maybe a little bit of advice of what kept it going. Helen, if I could start with you.
Yeah, look, I'll probably cherry pick one real practical example for HR teams. I think, especially on the business partnering side, we can be inundated with policies and HR documentation and letters. So if I look at a habit that kind of worked for us, that we trialed probably a couple of months ago was that my business partners, any HR documentation, any policies, any kind of restructure letters that need to go out, run it through AI to sense check first, and to get that first draft. So I think there was two things we were doing here. One, giving permission to the team that you can use AI if you don't know the answer and check it. So empowering them that it is okay to use AI for this work, because HR people, I would say, even at some of our customer lunches, very nervous about using AI because of compliance and everything like this. But let's have the guardrails in place. And then I became a bit of a reviewer. Now, initially, AI was picking up the heavy lifting, like improving the structure, the tone, doing the checking. And I can really see over the last couple of months where that's gone through, where I was kind of sense checking the formatting of their document and making sure they've got all the fair work ticks in place, to now their prompting has enhanced. I'm doing less checking of that. And although I'm, at the speed, work is coming through faster because AI is, cutting out those iterations and iterations of drafts. So it's helping doing some of that work for them. I'm kind of getting the final document and the strategic and signing it off a lot quicker. So I think the way we've used AI is, instead of coaching, we've used it to make those coaching conversations more valuable. So there's been a twofold there: speed to deliver, cutting out that low value repetitive work, but increase the development of the team with their AI prompting and their experience.
And I think one of the key things that stands out there also, Helen, is the permission, like
Yeah,
permission to do it and not feel afraid that like using
yeah,
it as not cheating. Yeah. Um,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
Justin?
Yeah, for me, I really want to sort of double down on the importance of creating protected time to experiment and play with AI. It's so easy to just get stuck in your day-to-day operations. I've felt that myself at different times, and really just spin the wheels and not actually take the time to step out of the weeds and look back in. So what we've done within our people and culture team at ELMO, we've introduced a weekly AI hour of power. And that's a protected hour every Friday within our team. It's not absolutely mandatory, but it's recommended. And what that does is just really provides the space for our people to think about, where are the points of friction in the work that we're facing into every day. Let's just stop, take a step back, and really assess like what that current state looks like. And provide the empowerment and opportunity to think about, hey, how AI can actually help solve some of the challenges that we face day to day. So that's just something we've done in the people and culture side. But another area of our business in the technology or engineering department is they have a weekly AI showcase. So that's where the division comes together every Friday as well, and and someone gets up and showcases a different use case of how they've leveraged and used AI to sort of solve some specific problems that they're facing into. So that just gives some people something to think about and maybe take away and think about how that could apply to their own job. So there are a couple of different examples of where you can embed some different habits.
Yeah, great. I want to keep moving forward, and talking about maybe the habits, not just inside your own team, but zooming out across the organization. And Helen, you touched on this briefly before, that kind of improving of prompting, but what expectations do you both, I guess, have about AI fluency, and how you think about what good enough looks like in different roles, like when it comes to
Yeah, that really good question, Elisa. It's interesting because I say my view has actually changed over the last 12 months. I think when it was first come out, it was like, oh, we all need to be fluent. We all need to be experts in AI. Like even myself and everyone across the business, do we need to go and sit with our engineers for a while and all get trained on coding and building AI? And I think that is that first, the media, everything that was out there was just so overwhelming, even for us HR people. How do we start taking teams on that journey when we haven't even started ourselves, and there was this huge expectation? But look, I think as time has progressed, I think what's become really clear is not everyone does have to have universal AI fluency. It's not how it works. As we, like any change management, there's levels of where that should drill down to. And, for me, I always talk about it's really about leadership capability and how they lead their teams through that. And, when I think about very senior, board level, chairman level, really they only need enough fluency that they know where are they going to invest in, what software tools are they going to invest in. And then you've got your management group. I think AI fluency across that group is really understand how it's going to impact workflows, being able to lead your staff through those work changes and taking them on that. So noticing a workflow and going, we could really improve this with AI. And then you're going to have your super users like your engineers and like your AI champions and your gurus. And not everyone has to have that same level of usage or fluency.
I would love to propose a counter view to that because
Yes.
I think what is going to happen is that it is actually going to become critical for anyone with an AI license because if your billing has not changed yet, it is probably about to change in terms of not just being charged per user, but being charged per token. And what we have found is that, yes, super users and very advanced users burn through tokens, but it's also very easy for someone with low AI fluency to burn through tokens just as
Mm,
fast through having a big argument with AI because they don't understand, prompting or context engineering and they're getting poor outputs again and again and they're arguing and they're getting really angry with the AI and going, why are you doing this? And I could certainly suggest why AI is doing that because of a lack of AI fluency. And that is that's not going to be great in terms of organizations' ROI on what you're spending, particularly as tokenomics, as it's being referred to, comes into play. So I think if you've got an AI license, AI fluency is critical.
mm,
Yeah, I think to add to that as well. So I guess there's two different layers I just wanted to touch on when it comes to expectations. One is I think it's really important that organizations are really clear with what their expectations are of you. So one thing that we
mm,
felt helped was our CEO really fronting up our AI vision and charter at the beginning of the financial year, and that kind of really set the guardrails and the boundaries around. This is what we're expecting of everyone through the organization. It doesn't matter what role that you're in. We're expecting you to engage with it. So that's kind of
yeah.
one level. And then the other level is actually we created a core capability called AI fluency or AI proficiency. And that was really mapping out, again, no matter what role you're in, there's a foundational level of knowledge and understanding of how to use it effectively, safely, and responsibly. And then there's a level of nuance depending on what part of the business that you sit in as to whether that level increases and increases. And
Yeah.
again, similar to everyone in the business, all of our leaders have an expectation of, how they drive the right environment and conditions within their own teams. They don't have to be experts, but they have to be able to create that environment for experimentation, for play, and to really
Mm,
direct and empower their teams to have greater impact.
yeah. Absolutely.
Well, it's kind of a good segue, that leadership piece, and maybe talking a little bit about, because you just mentioned then, Justin, we had our CEO who was very like instrumental in setting that kind of vision. And I think we at ELMO have been very lucky to have that leadership buy-in from the start
Mm,
and to ask us to get started. So maybe, Amantha, I might start with you, especially there's a few people on the call who say interest exists, but still not quite clear on ownership. Like, I'm
mm.
sure if you've gone into many organizations as part of your work with Inventium AI, that's common. What I guess guidance could you potentially provide?
There's generally two things that I say. The first thing is if we can get in front of your executive team, we can turn them around because often their level of AI fluency is very, very mixed. And as soon as they can actually unlock the power of AI themselves, their views, like they just do a 180. And I found that that is the easiest way to unlock executive support. If that is not an option, then I say, okay, run a pilot, go grassroots. Like I was speaking to quite a senior leader at a financial services organization a couple of weeks ago. She was trying to get something set up with the exec team. It didn't happen. So we're just like, okay, let's just run a pilot. Let's get some eager beavers who want to up their AI game. Let's get some really solid measures that we're going to take pre-program and a few weeks post-program so that we can demonstrate the ROI because no executive team is going to argue against, hours being saved, quality of work improving, a reduction in AI slop. So I would say those approaches have worked really well for clients of ours at Inventium that are like, yeah, the leaders are saying they're supporting this, but I'm not really seeing this in action.
Yeah, that sounds, I think pilot program is like sorry, excuse me, is where we see a lot of people like definitely trying to start. I know in our HROB, I think it was like 50% of ANZ organisations were like in that pilot phase. So I feel like it might be quite common. Justin, maybe I'll
Mm.
start with you, I guess, from your once you, I guess, have that interest of the leaders, perhaps not like not full buy-in, but the interest, how would you approach it? And like maybe using your example of how it's worked at ELMO.
Yeah, so I think from a behavior perspective, some of the leaders that I see really charging ahead are the ones that just have a level of openness, curiosity, and also a level of vulnerability in how they approach and talk about AI. So they really demonstrate, visible role modeling with their teams, and they set clear expectations and also provide practical support to their teams. So a good example of how I've seen that being brought to life is where a leader actually in a team meeting actually did a live agent build. So they talked about a specific problem or pain point live with the team and actually then really actually did the live demonstration. So they showed them how they would unpack it, how they would approach building the agent and the different elements within the agent, and showed that it involved making mistakes that they then had to iterate and maybe even try to play around with it a little bit more to get a better end outcome. And then where they landed in their first iteration of the agent build is not where they landed longer term, because once they deployed it, they would find some areas where it could be improved to make it more sophisticated for a greater impact. So just by showing it that it doesn't have to be a perfect art and you don't have to be an expert, I think really sort of lower the temperature or the barriers for entry for their team, and really allowed and gave their teams a little bit more confidence and also the psych safety in the environment for that experimentation.
And Helen, I'm kind of interested in your viewpoint. I know you've had a lot of discussions like out in the world about AI ownership, I guess, as well. Like, I guess, like understanding who has that AI ownership, and again, if leaders are interested but maybe not fully on board, how do you see HR's role as maybe like trying to take that lead, and what have you seen work?
Yeah, look, I think it's, AI it's like any other, change management program, and that kind of sits with HR and behavioral change. So, where I have seen it work, and, I've definitely spoken to some of our customers that if there is no clarity on who owns it, then, it's very slow to progress. But I think we've been really lucky here at Elmo that, as Justin was saying, it's been leadership led, top down, and then us as a team and a P&C team have kind of rolled out the behavioural change, and really it's supporting those leaders with like any change management program, taking their employees through the phases, bringing them on the journey, giving them permission to use it. I think providing clarity to their team, why we're doing it, what's the benefit to the organization, benefit to them. So, and allowing and role modeling that curiosity. So I'm very much a believer that part of the AI does sit with the HR team, because it's what we do, whether it's, rolling out any other change management program. Yeah.
Yeah, well said. I think that like when you think about it back from those like that more foundational level, right, of what it is
Mm,
that you guys do, it makes it maybe feel a little bit more like achievable because it's like
yeah,
taking it back to your basics.
that's it.
I want to do that. So excuse me. I wanted to ask a couple of like questions around, I guess, starter behaviors. If you are kind of in that beginning of the journey, and talking about that kind of more manageable approach, like what's a couple of like two or three small like behaviors or like projects perhaps that you could do that might make it feel more manageable to get started? Justin, maybe I'll start with you.
Yeah, so I think if we're thinking about people getting started, my recommendation is just to keep it small and contained to start with. So don't try to bite off too much to start with. So really focus on, maybe one friction point or one part of a workflow or one use case at a time, rather than trying to transform everything at once. And then that's when you become a little bit overwhelmed. So once you start small, then you can build that confidence and then expand and launch off the back of that. So that would be one tip to get started. And the second is to ask a better question. So when engaging and collaborating with AI, making sure that you're asking questions before you begin a task, and then also at different points along the journey as well. So that makes AI feel like less of a reinvention and more like a practical support tool and collaborator that you have alongside you.
Yeah, I love that. And Helen, I'd love you to talk a little bit about Ask Poppy, I think, in that regard, if we're talking about a small project. Can you give us a little bit of everyone here, a bit of an introduction of what Ask Poppy is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, and I that's we did it within our own team, exactly what Justin is talking about, small team, and decided to go in and experiment. And that's when we built Ask Poppy, which is our HR AI knowledge base. So everything is now uploaded into Poppy. So all of our policies, all of our documentation, and staff can just use it. Now, what's been great about that is we've seen that really develop and we've built it in a way that it can grow and scale. And we've just now launched our Jira HR help desk, which is Poppy is the first responder to answer all those questions. People are very nervous because they're used to picking up the phone and speaking to their HR business partner. But, once we got them to change that habit, it's been adapted really well. We've seen really good stats. We've got a reduction in those first level questions coming through to our business partners, which means they can focus on more high level strategic work. And we're just continuing to grow that. So it's all now automated throughout the business, and it sits on our main intranet page and Confluence, and everyone can access it and get those first level questions in an instant. We've just scaled that to be able to request reporting, or request certain requisitions, and we've kind of categorized it between the whole employee life cycle now. So it's been really good, really scalable.
And I think the thing I love about Ask Poppy is I don't think it matters what industry you're in, whether you want, I mean, at this point earlier, maybe not everyone needs an AI license, but or needs to be using it fluently in order for, to make it not insanely expensive. But when it comes to the HR, that kind of like saving time, and you spend so much of your time, answering questions about policies. I actually do have a stat here that you supply me, Helen, over the last 3 months. Ask Poppy has been asked a question around 420 times, which is translated to around 56 hours saved
Yes.
across your team, which I think is huge. But also, I guess when we talk about that kind of administration work that that many BPs and HR teams have to answer, it makes such a difference.
And I might just jump in there, Elise,
I'd
because
love you to jump in. I was going to ask you
I,
to.
yeah. I love the sound of that knowledge agent. I just think that is like the smartest use for HR teams and things that suck up so much time. I wanted to build on what Justin said, because I do think that's a great place to start in terms of unpacking a workflow. But something that I know that my team has found, and I think we've like been in a classroom now with about 5,000 people around Australia teaching them AI, is that it is easier said than done. Like with someone that thinks like, a workflow engineer or a business analyst, it's like they can look at a workflow and go, oh, I understand the steps. And, if I've got some AI knowledge, I understand where can AI play a role in that. But we found that probably 95% of people just don't think like that. And that is where you need to build that skill. If you are in HR and you are working on that learning strategy, that is not a skill that everyone is born with, and most people are not. Plus, understanding what can AI do and what could it not do is also critical, because AI is not a magician. It cannot create good quality data out of bad quality data. That is not a thing. A human needs to be involved. And so like one of the things that we did at Inventium, because we're just finding this problem again and again, is that we built what we call a spotter agent, which we give to our clients that we're helping like really unpack workflows, because as Justin said, it's a really great way to get some quick wins on the board. So I just think that's super good advice. One other thing, just like a super simple thing, if you are not already doing this, Justin said asking questions of the AI. I would also reverse that. And if you are not, when you are briefing AI on something, if you are not ending your prompt with please ask me any questions so that you can be really confident in doing a good job, you are missing out on a lot of value that AI has. By it asking you or getting it to ask you questions, it will create fill in more of the gaps around context. And the more context the AI has, the better quality output you're going to get.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to build on that. Some of the things you've touched on there, Amantha, as well, is like the concept of AI intuition. and how that can really help accelerate, I guess, the impact. So if you're not just focusing on like having a really bit of a narrow focus on prompt engineering or just like usage of a tool, but how do you help people understand what is the concept of a workflow? Okay, if I was to break that workflow down, what would that actually look like? So I think there's some of the things that you can try to do as part of your learning strategy to not just be focused on, okay, here's the tool, let's train people on the tool, or here's some prompt engineering, here's context engineering. They're all really valuable parts of a learning strategy, but it's also training people to be thinking differently and thinking about how do I actually truly collaborate with AI for success and impact? What are the good use cases? What aren't the good use cases? Where should I absolutely avoid it versus where should I really double down and accelerate usage of?
Mm.
I was gonna, this is so silly. Was it when you said Amantha and say, please ask me any questions? And I was like, do you guys actually say please? I feel like that's like a semi like topical. Again, it came up in my course the other day whether or not people thank it or say please. Do you?
I'm just trying to think what the latest research says because I think that used to help, but I think now the research would suggest it doesn't help being polite. But just never tick the thumbs up emoji because then your data will be more likely to be used for training. So just don't do that.
Um, okay. I've got to note
Interesting
that down.
tip.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like I wanted to maybe touch, you've all kind of mentioned at some point or other the data and I guess like that foundational, the foundation of when you start to use AI. And we've just had some research come out this week, I think, actually, from our latest employee sentiment index, which said that 1.5 million Australians are now turning to AI first over their colleague or manager, which is 1.5 million workers. So it's about 14%. So not a huge number, but 44% also said it would depend on the task. Where we feel that is, I guess, critical is like if you're using AI, if your employees are turning to AI to ask a question and it's about, your work or, your systems and so forth, how is your business set up to answer those questions? Like, is AI going to start sending people off in like a rogue direction? Maybe Justin, I can start with you of like what your opinion on that might be.
Yeah, I think there's very different use cases, as you've pointed out. So if I touch on the Ask Poppy use case, so that's a perfect example of a closed source AI usage use case. So we're wanting to make sure that any of the responses, any of the outputs, any of the outcomes are from trusted sources, are from sources that are, 100% accurate and can be used repeatable. So that's a really good example of ensuring when you're building some sort of, AI agent, that you really understand like what are the boundaries that I want to work within. So if it's critical relating to policy, we need to make sure that's closed off and it doesn't start, searching the wider internet to gain access to those responses. So that's a good example of making sure that when you're building agents to know exactly what you do and don't want from an outcome perspective. And that's also part of the training that we do. We use a tool called Glean. So for anyone who doesn't know what Glean is, it's an AI tool like an LLM that sits across your overall workspace. So we use G Suite, the Google Suite. We have Slack, so it's able to read your sort of organizational and also individual context to help sort of, I guess, elevate and make the outputs and responses a little bit more intuitively accurate for your type of work. So within that, we have to train people to be thinking about those sorts of things. So it's not just going in and putting a request in, but thinking about, okay, what's the output that I'm actually seeking here? So what would a good outcome be? And then what's the best way to actually address that through, different settings around, do I want completely open source? I want it to refer to ELMO specific information and also outside information, or do I just want it to be outside information only, or do I want it to be only information held within the ELMO secure workspace? So I think it's important for people to understand those different elements, and it's not just one way of putting through requests or use cases through AI, is to really think about what's the outcome that I want and then what's the best use of the tool to get there.
Oh, you're on mute, Elise.
Classic. 2020 Elise. I was going to say, Amantha, did you have anything you could add to that?
Look, I think one thing that comes to mind, and I feel like, like for context, I'm probably speaking to leaders at 5 to 15 different organizations every single week. And in every conversation, when we're talking about AI capability building, I'll be asking, what are your metrics for success? Like if we are coming in to help build AI fluency and capability, how will you know that it's been successful? I would say in about half those conversations, they have no metrics, which is for obvious reasons problematic. The other problem I encounter, when we're talking about metrics, because I think that, this needs to be the domain of HR, P&C, because you guys are looking after capability building, is that we have flawed metrics like, usage, number of logins, number of tokens used. And I think that we really need to start thinking differently about metrics. And one thing like I have been pondering about, and that I wrote a Substack on this yesterday, so it's kind of fresh in my mind, is that one of the big problems I see, and I think a big reason why AI is not giving us the productivity gains that we have hoped for in terms of what the stats are saying, is because there's so much AI slop. So we've got people with licenses, they are using AI as a very expensive Google, and then they are writing emails that are way too long and there's no substance and it's just slop. And then if you multiply that across everyone with an AI license, and then you multiply that across documents and slide decks and all the rubbish that I think is probably hitting all of our inboxes, you've got a really, really big productivity problem. So something I was pondering on is that, like, for those that are on Substack, if you're not, it's a wonderful social media platform, which I feel is like oxymoronic to say, but if you hop on it, you'll see. And you know how like all articles have a time to read metric,
Mm,
like, oh, this will take you about 5 minutes to read. I reckon, like in this day and age, it is far more useful for anything that you write and anything that you produce to have a time to create or a time to write metric. Because then, as like me, as someone receiving lots of emails, lots of briefing documents, all sorts of things from clients and colleagues, I can go, okay, they like this has taken them 10 minutes to produce with AI. It probably deserves about 60 seconds of my attention versus someone that has spent 3 to 4 hours putting something together, still perhaps assisted or augmented with AI. But I can tell that there's like been a lot of human thought and a lot of critical thinking and judgment going into that. And I can go, that probably warrants more like half an hour of my time to review. So, I would love it. Like if that resonates with people, start the time to create or time to write movement. That is like something that I've just shared with my team this morning, and I think that it would help in terms of all this AI slop that we are just drowning in.
mm,
My build on that to Amantha, and also connect to the leadership behaviors. When it comes to AI slop, you hear it all the time, right? Oh, I'm seeing so much AI slop. And for me, it's challenging our leaders around what our expectations are of them, in that to lead more effectively with AI, they still need to spend the same amount of time to coach, to develop, to uphold like specific standards, whether AI is involved or not. So I don't want to hear people sort of whinging or complaining about the quality of work within their team. Like my challenge to them is like, well, that's up to you to be able to coach and
mm,
develop that within your team. So hold your people responsible. If it's bad output, it's bad output. Doesn't matter whether it's with AI or without AI. So it's something that I think, leaders can do more of, is to challenge themselves into how they're actually driving that AI quality within their business and team.
And I reckon, Justin, like one of the most important metrics that we're measuring around AI is the quality of work improving? No one is talking about that. Like, yes, time savings are really great and they're easier to measure than quality of work. But I just think that has got to be a metric that we care about, with all the AI slop that we are inundated with.
I think that's exactly it. It's really hard to make the quality tangible. And so when, you're asking to put reports up for ROI, like what's the actual return on the investment that we're doing with AI? What's the actual impact? It really is actually hard to make it really tangible and clear for executive teams and for board as well around, here's our investment, here's how much money we're spending on the thing. and then here's the output and impact. It's really hard to actually create those connections. So I'm not sure if you've seen any organizations do that really well, Amantha, but in a lot of the conversations I've had, it's still an emerging challenge that organizations are facing into.
Yeah, look, for us, how we've solved for it, like generally when we're going in and we're running training programs around AI, is that we'll take a pre-program measure in terms of a baseline, where are people at, and also where is the quality of work at. And then we'll come back a few weeks later once, habits have had a chance to settle in, and we'll go, where's the quality at now? And something else that we've done with a few of the leadership groups that we've worked with is work with them on creating like we call it a quality compass agent, where we actually help them build an agent that thinks like them and reviews work like them. And it's something that their direct reports can run their work through before submitting it to that leader. And so it stands to reason then that that leader is going to be receiving a significantly higher quality of well thought through work just through creating this agent.
Mm,
I love that.
Yeah, I
very
do
good.
love that.
Yeah, yeah, it's great.
I was going to like we're nearing the end of today, and I think I want to like end with one final question for you all before we get to a couple of questions that we've had. If you were advising a HR leader who's here today, a lot of them who seem to be saying, they've got the tools are in place, but either adoption or impact is patchy. Um, what would you tell them to focus on first? Like what would your first steps be? Helen, I might start with you.
Yeah, look, just don't wait for the perfect strategy. I think start with one team, start small, start bite size, look at one real business problem and tackle that. And I think retro have look at what worked, what didn't work, and learn from it. I think then you can start building from there, measure the impact, and share that story. And then once you've shared that story, hopefully you're actually giving permission and you're actually, role modeling to everyone else across the organization, and that this is where we start.
I'll jump in next. I would say two things. I would say, firstly, be clear on your purpose with AI. That sounds a little bit silly because like you have to do AI, if not, like just go back to 2021, I guess. But so be clear on your purpose. Like, what are you hoping to gain from AI? Like, are you hoping that through time savings you will be able to deliver better work-life balance? Maybe move to a 4-day week, like what we do at Inventium. Are you hoping that leaders using AI will actually have more time to invest in like one-on-ones and real human connection or culture building activities? So be really clear on your why, and then from that be clear on your metrics, because if you don't have metrics, how on earth are you going to know if like what you're doing is successful or working or going in the right direction?
And then lastly, from me, I would say I think what has worked for us is to treat sort of AI transformation as a cultural change program. So it's not just about capability build with AI. It's thinking about your whole system. So what's your whole employee life cycle, and think about how can we introduce elements within that life cycle that connect with AI and what our purpose is, to your point, Amantha. So where do we want to get to? Where do we want to be? And then what are the different elements within within the type of work that we do, how we measure people's performance, how we reward people, how we develop and grow them? What does that look like in the context of AI? So just broadening your mindset and not thinking about just the capability around AI.
Yeah. Thank you all. Thank you. I want to get to a couple of questions before we finish off today. So we had one that came through at the start. I'm not sure, I know Justin or Helen, I think you spoke about guardrails, and she wanted to know more about those, like when I guess setting those up, I guess at the start.
Yeah, so I can talk to that. I mean, we started obviously we're a HR tech company, so we went very heavy on the governance. A lot of the things we've talked about today have been in the last 12 months when we already had really strong sort of governance and guardrails in place. So we really kicked that off with an AI policy, and I'm sure at least we can share. Our CPO Ann Toski created an agent around an AI policy agent and shared that with some of our customers at another event. So really starting to make sure that you have those guardrails in place around what does safe, responsible, and secure use of AI in the context of your organization. Like, what is your organizational risk appetite? Understanding that clearly to then need to understand like how far do we go from that governance perspective. It's always a balance between innovation and risk. And that's where you as people and culture leaders can really think about that and open up the conversation with your executive team and leaders across the business to where you sit within that. But a really clean, easy way to start is with an AI policy, and that sets that expectation. So we have that built through our onboarding process. So everyone that starts at ELMO has to read the AI policy and acknowledge their understanding of that prior to getting an access to any of our AI tools. So that's really one of the fundamental things, and I think quite an easy place for people to start.
Yeah, nice. Sorry. Amantha, would you add anything from a guardrail perspective?
Um, Look, have an AI policy. Make sure that I mean, just like from a general risk point of view, I'm constantly surprised around the number of organizations that have given out licenses but don't have a clear policy or have not communicated that policy. Because I can tell you right now, like shadow AI use, where people are using their personal AI tools for work stuff, is rife. Like the number of people doing that is like mind blowing. So I would say, look, just on the topic of risk, that is something to be really, really clear with people on what can we do, what can we not do.
Well, based on that, we might actually share Anne's tool that she created in the follow-up resource today, so that for those on the call, for those attending, you can have a go at the agent and see. We would always advise that you work with your IT or your tech, department to finalize it. But you can definitely get started with her agent because I think it's something that that people have found quite helpful. We have a
And I
question.
think I might just jump in. Sorry, one
Oh,
last thing.
sorry,
Just to
go.
think to
No.
those shadows tools is like be clear, just be clear and articulate what are approved and what aren't. And so I know it sounds really simplistic, but having a list of approved tools versus not, that really is really helpful. Something quite simplistic, but just then creates the clarity around what they can and can't do. And then depending on the sophistication of your monitoring systems, whether you've got the ability to flag when there is that shadow usage, within your ecosystem, I think there are a couple of things to be considering.
And I think as well, being clear, being clear on if you have a feeling about what you've obviously bought licenses, and then if you can share your company's data into those tools as well, right?
Yeah.
So if there's anything that even with a license, you're like, still don't share that. I know that came up again in my course that I did the other day. People were like, can I actually put this information into an LLM? Like, still not sure, like even though they had the license. Sorry. So a question for Poppy. We got a couple of sorry, Poppy. A question for Helen about Ask Poppy. What authoring tool were you using to create, add, or change the content?
What authoring tool?
Yeah.
So we've built our Poppy through Glean, and so that's the system that Justin had explained before, which is connected to all our apps. So we used to use Confluence and hold all our policies there. That has now been all put onto a secure drive, a HR drive, which has restrictions around it, and that's been fed up into our Glean system through this agent.
Nice. And I'm not sure if we can answer this, but the question is it possible to understand the ratio of HR business partners to workforce in Elmo and how much communication was delivered or provided before introducing Ask Poppy?
Ah, interesting. Okay, so we have two business partners, and that is across probably about 350 staff. Sorry, what was the second part of the question?
How you communicated it, and like how much communication was delivered prior before introducing it.
Yeah, so we sent out a few teasers to the business that we would be launching an Ask Poppy, and that all their queries would be escalated. This would be first level questions, and then we did a big launch day, advertised it, went on LinkedIn, when it was given out to all the organisation to use and test. We did start with a pilot test group first, just to make sure that it was working, and then it was released to the whole business. And it was also released at one of our town halls as well, as to being the first point and your first point of contact with any HR query, and then gets escalated to the business partner if it can't answer.
And what I love about Poppy as well is like from two sides. Number from the employee side is that just in time answer. So, being able to get, and that's what we found through the pilot that Helen's team ran was they actually we were worried about people being concerned about going to an agent as a first point of call versus having the human element. But what we found was actually some really positive
Mm.
responses around the just-in-time access to information when they needed it, instead of sending something into a queue or sending direct messages to people and then waiting for their availability. So that was actually really, really powerful. And then also from our people partners perspective, and any of you on the webinar today that have to deal with day-to-day basic queries that are already in a policy that are there and people are just too lazy to actually go looking for them. How powerful to be able to have an agent sitting there taking that workload off your plate, so then you can be focusing on the more strategic oriented, people and culture activities.
And I think employees and managers' ability to self-serve as well, it's saved them time. Like there's something like Justin said, they want the answer instantly, so they can go straight to Poppy, get it. Now that we have it set up with and scaled it to our Jira, help desk, and they can now ask for reports. They can now ask for forms. Like there's not that waiting on your HR business partner, who that is going to go to the bottom of the inbox if you're working with a matter or a fire or something else. So that ability to self-serve has been very popular.
Yeah, I definitely am guilty of being lazy. So I feel like there's almost at me. Someone was asking, just asked, how do you measure the quality of responses from Poppy?
So it's based on all pre-written policies, all pre-written documentation. So it can only really, well, no matter how the question is framed, if it's a question about leave or it's a question about mat leave, it's going to draw straight from our policy there. And then if they need more information that and policy and Poppy can't get it, it will give them back a response of who they're going to put their query through to.
Nice. And I think this probably is the same. The next question that came through was around managing version control and publishing in various formats, but I'm assuming that the policy is still the source of truth.
Yes.
So
Yeah, we just
policies are always,
update it.
yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
So it's
And
just
add.
like any other
Yeah,
time. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
You're just creating a knowledge base, and that doesn't have to be
Yeah.
just people and culture related. You're creating a knowledge base. You have an owner of that knowledge base, and again, you've only had the latest versions evolved. You remove older versions as they aren't needed anymore. So it's a really closed
And
off.
you're constantly adding as well. We're just going through our end of year process here, which has got a lot of, REM material and training materials and how to hold performance conversations. And we're just constantly uploading that to us, Poppy.
And I would say as well, like, I don't know how it works for everyone else on the call, but through our learning platform, like, I think it's through the law, well, it might be a HR call, but we get notified when the policy is updated as
Yeah.
well. So we as an employee are also told, oh, there's an update to the policy, whether that be the AI training one or like the mat leave policy and so forth. So the question was, do you find that your HR team doesn't have a knowledge of the policies because they aren't working as closely with them?
No, not at all. I think if anything, I mean, they're the team that wrote the policies. They've uploaded it. They keep across what needs to be updated. It's just like kind of whether you're updating it on your files before you had Poppy, but rather than those questions coming through to you, how it's working in the background is still the same. Like the person still has the knowledge. They're still up in any updated laws or anything that come out. They're just not having to answer those questions repetitively. Poppy is, but it's the still same person with the knowledge behind the tool.
Yeah. And the final comment was, it sounds like a manual process that's ideal for AI. It's a question, but I think I'm reading it as a comment. Yes,
Yes,
absolutely.
absolutely.
Yeah. I think that is all. Although one person just made a comment, which was like the keyword for me today is AI slop. So I know that's definitely it's certainly come up. I mean, we certainly in marketing talk about it all the time. I'm sure many people in this call have to manage it. So the quality compass agent that Amantha you mentioned is something that I um, feel like I would like to flag as an agent that I would like to build within my own team.
Look forward to
So
seeing it, Elise.
yeah. Next webinar, someone's like, "Did you build it?" And I'm like, "Oh gosh, this the pressure." Oh, so I just wanted to thank you all. Thank you to our
Mm.
three guests, so Amantha, Justin, and Helen. We really appreciate the time you take and the I know that's a lot of time both for you guys to like think about your answers and like bring the time, and Amantha, just your time in general and bringing so much knowledge for us. We have just launched a poll. Just let us know how you found today. And also we're keen, I think I've got it on here. Yes, I do. Is there a topic you'd like us to explore more in the future? So, we're as we evolve these in the room series, we're really keen to hear what you guys want to know more about, and help you know, broaden everyone's knowledge. We're all in this together, as they say. Our next webinar is actually our virtual roadshow. So if you're interested in seeing how both ELMO as a product has incorporated AI natively into the product, as well as our new features and some of the things that we're doing, come along. It's at the end of August, the 26th. So either keep an eye. I think there's a couple of invites that have been out already. There'll definitely be another one next week. But yeah, we'd love to see you there. And then keep an eye out on feedbacks for our next webinars, because there will always be more. We really love putting them on. So thanks again. Thank you guys. Have an excellent day.